Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat, in which we will discuss confidentiality, privacy, and security. For any given organization, safeguarding the confidentiality, privacy, and security is important. Therefore, we have to have a unified strategy that involves every department in doing what? In protecting confidentiality information, privacy, and the security of the data. This step involves both IT and non-IT people. But we want to make sure that confidentiality, privacy, and security are maintained. We have to do what? We have to conduct regular structured exercises known as either read-through, walk-through, and fire drills. And each of these steps, they serve a specific purpose to making sure the organization is ready to do what? Ready to maintain the confidentiality of the information, the privacy of its data, of its personal identifiable information, and the security of its data, whether it's in rest or in transit. So in this session, we'll show you the techniques. Now, who would carry these steps, read through, walk through, and fire drills? They could be led by IT people. They could be led by an auditor. They could be led by a service auditor. You need someone that's going to lead this process, but everyone's going to be involved. We're going to look at each one of those separately, but we'll focus more on walkthroughs. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, FarhatLectures.com.
Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today.
What is a read-through? Well, this is the initial phase, and in this phase, you disseminate the organization's security, confidentiality, and privacy policies to all people who should be aware of them. And this involves both IT and non-IT departments. They have to know what are our confidentiality policies, privacy, security, and the purpose is twofold. Why do we go through this? To familiarize staff with both intermediate and broader procedures designed to protect the organization data and integrity. You need to be familiar with this. And to critically assess these procedures for any outdated information or practices that no longer serve their intended purpose. So the staff might tell you, well, this step is no longer valid because we have changed some procedure. So this stage is crucial for ensuring that everyone understands their role and actions they need to take in various scenarios. So all what you're doing here is a read-through. Everybody is going through the information, maybe a round table, maybe a Zoom meeting, maybe a conference, just talking to everyone. We're all on the same page, just talking about this. For what purpose? To familiarize yourself with it, and maybe we'll figure out we're doing something that's outdated. The next step is a walkthrough. So once we understand the procedures, upon building upon that foundation that we established during the read-through, the walkthrough phase involved actually practical scenario-based training. Now we're doing a little bit more than just reading and learning. Here the team members engage in role-playing exercises that simulate potential disasters or attack situation. Here we're just kind of talking about a scenario, what would happen. These simulations are designed to be as realistic as possible. For example, an attacker tries to access and exploit data for personal gain. Now, participants here are asked their task when applying the procedure they have learned to stop these attempts and mitigate any data leaks in such a way that the information cannot be used against the organization. So what you're asking for application of the rule. So think about it in step one. You read it, you understand it. Now let me kind of test you on it. What will you do in this situation? And this hands-on training helps reinforce the theoretical knowledge gained during the read-through. So think about, I ask you to read a book or a few pages that I'm going to test you on them, providing a clear understanding on how to act in real-life scenarios. So this is what a walkthrough is. Then we could have a fire drills. Now, bear in mind, we're going to talk about walkthroughs a little bit more, how it gets done, and specific steps. Fire drills, they're not as frequent. because they take more resources. They offer another dimension of testing. This is, you're going through the whole simulation, simulating a whole scenario with everything's happening live at the same time, testing the efficacy of the organization security policies. This is similar to a fire drill for physical safety. These drills simulate emergency situation to test whether the employees can act quickly and correctly. Now you're not asking them to do they understand, tell me what should be done. Now you're asking them to follow the emergency protocol procedures related to data security and privacy. The key here, the goal, is to ensure that even under pressure, staff can respond effectively, because here you have acting the scenarios, just under scenarios. And sometimes you may not tell the employees it's a scenario, protecting both themselves and the organization assets. Together, these steps form a comprehensive training and preparedness program that not only educate but also test the organization resilience against potential threat to its security, confidentiality, and privacy. Now we're going to focus, as I mentioned, on walkthroughs. Walkthroughs involve a structured step-by-step approach process to do what? To evaluate the effectiveness and the alignment of the organization procedure with its documented policy. So here's what we're doing. Here's what we have on paper. Let's see if it's working as expected by testing it. Well, we're going to use six steps accompanied with an example to illustrate this concept. So the first thing you do in a walkthrough is you plan and prepare. You define the scope, determine the extent and limits of the walkthrough. What are we doing? What are we testing? Then we and what's the limit? Then we identify key controls and processes, because we have to know what are we testing. There could be many processes, many key controls. Pinpoint the essential mechanism and operation that need evaluation. Then you have to select the personnel that's going to be involved or provide information. For example, a company decides to assess its data encryption practices. So the scope includes all the data encryption processes used for customer information. So the key control here are encryption algorithm and access control, and the IT security team is identified as key personnel. So now we're down to, we defined what are we determine the extent and limit of the walkthrough. We know who's going to be involved, and what is the key control? Simply put, data encryption. IT security team are key in this control. Then we obtain an understanding, examine all relevant procedures, documents, and policies. Interview people, talk to the staff involved in the process to understand how they are executed. Just talking to them. How do you execute these procedures? Take detailed note to record observations and insight. See how they answer, how did they answer. So here the team reviews the encryption policy document and interview the IT security about how encryption keys are managed and how data is encrypted and decrypted. You're asking them, and you're not testing them, but you're learning what they know. It's okay. In the read through, they tell them to read it. Now you're asking them, explain it to me. How does this work? How does data encryption works? Then you perform a walkthrough. Here you execute the procedures as if they are documented to see if they work as intended. If you took the audit exam already in the CPA exam, this is going to remind you of internal control. So if you remember, when you learn about internal control, the first step is you learn about the internal control. You just lay it down in front of you in a flow chart or questionnaires or a paragraph, a description. Step one is to learn it. Step two, you take a walkthrough. What is a walkthrough? You start to see if it's working as expected. Here you execute the procedures as they are documented. You told me this is how it works. I want to see if it's working. And you verify the results and effectiveness check to ensure that the outcome align with the expected security standard. Did it work as expected? Just like the internal control. So the team reperforms. Notice internal control terminology reperforms the process of encrypting a sample piece of customer information, then verify that the encrypted data meet the company standards. Actually, you're just doing testing. In a sense, you're doing a sampling of testing. Then what you do is you create documentation. You want to document the whole process. Compile detailed record of the walkthrough process. record the exact step that you took during the walkthrough process and any discrepancy noted. They said they're doing this, but they're not really doing it, or they're doing this and they're executing it perfectly. So the team prepares work paper that details each step of the encryption process they tested, including any deviation. That's what we're looking for from the documented procedures. Now we might do some testing, assess the identify key control to do what? To ensure they are effective. Use specific samples or data to test the control. Here what you can do, you attempt to decrypt the data. Now you're not only seeing how it works, I'm going to test it like penetration testing. Decrypt the data without proper authorization using a sample encrypted file, like trying to break through the system. Then at the end, you evaluate and you report. Analyze the finding from test and walkthrough. Prepare a report, summarize the finding, compile a report detailing the evaluation outcome. Maybe you want to offer suggestions for the improvement based on the evaluation. So after analyzing the walkthrough and test results, the team prepares a report indicating that the encryption process is generally effective, but might recommend updating the encryption algorithm to align with newer standards. And they also suggest improvement in management and of encryption keys to reduce potential vulnerabilities or whatever they find out during the testing phase, during this evaluation phase. But at the end, they issue a report. So this is a walkthrough. Again, if you want to kind of remember this, think about internal control. An auditor is looking at internal controls. First, they learn about it, like a read through. Then they do a walkthrough. See if it's working as expected. Now, if we want to go through the third example, fire drill, it's like actually doing the internal control, testing. You're actually testing it. You're going through the process rather than just a walkthrough. Just walk through to learn. But when you actually heavily test it, this is where the kind of similar to the fire drills, but we're not going to go there. Now, bear in mind, each department will have different goals to protect. So each walkthrough will be different. For example, in finance and accounting, the goal is to protect sensitive financial data by implementing stringent access control. So here what your aim is to verify that policies designed are working to protect the PII, the personal identifiable information and proprietary data. And this includes ensuring that the collection of PII is minimized and that access to sensitive information is strictly limited. We talked about PII before, but what I'm trying to say is the finance and accounting department might have a different aim than, for example, HR or IT. And from a security perspective here, the focus shifts to confirming that security measures effectively restrict access to system, managing financial operation like cash withdrawal, transfer. No one can just go in and process a wire transfer, for example. And this process is exclusively limited to only authorized personnel. So this is what your aim is when you're going through this walkthrough, to make sure confidentiality, security, and privacy are protected in the finance and the accounting department. HR will have similar but different aim. For HR, which plays a crucial role in onboarding and managing employee, the walkthrough here when it comes to confidentiality is these checks ensure that HR practices align with policies on collecting, managing, and protecting personal information. Also, you have PII, but those PII are for employees. So here you want to see if the HR department is indeed collecting only the necessary information to hire this individual, and also if this information is secure. Focus on verifying a thorough background checks, assigning appropriate security roles to contractors and employees, effective communication of security policies, monitoring of employee activities, and ensuring prompt revocation of access upon job transition or termination. What does that mean? It means from a security perspective, you want to make sure when the person is hired, you do a security check. This is part of securing the company. When you give them a security role, it's aligned with their security. The security role is aligned with their position. Effectively communicating the security policies. If they got transferred to another position, well, upon transfer, the old revocation is taken and you give them new access. And if they're terminated, you need to immediately terminate their access. So the security concern for an HR department is a little bit different than accounting and finance due to the nature of the business. And the IT department will have a different security, confidentiality, and privacy concern. But this is just an example to kind of pace to tell you that this walkthrough would apply differently in different departments. So the objective here is to confirm that the HR handling of the employee information and access privilege uphold the organization standard for privacy and security. How would they do that? A little bit differently than accounting and finance because the processes are different. So keep an open mind when it comes to walkthrough because each department will handle their privacy, security, and confidentiality a little bit different depending on what they are trying to protect. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. Why are fire drills considered an effective method for testing security policies within an organization? So why fire drills are effective? They primarily focus on the physical fitness of the employee. Well, here we're betting that you don't know what fire drills are. It has nothing to do with the physical fitness. They assess employees' understanding and compliance with emergency protocol. Would they do that? Yes. Fire drills assesses your understanding and compliance. Do you really understand it? And when it comes we're under fire, do you really know what you're doing? Compliance with emergency protocol. Because a fire drill simulate a live attack, a live violation, and how are we responding? How are we acting under this threat? So B, I would say it's a good answer, but let's look at C. They determine the effectiveness of the company fire alarm system. It has nothing to do with fire alarms whatsoever. Person that select this choice, it means they have no clue what we're talking about here. They are used to evaluate the efficiency of the company's internet speed. Again, has nothing to do with internet speed. And internet speed is for the network. How well is our network? So D is out by, as we mentioned, B is the correct answer. What should you do? Now you want to go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional MCQs. That's going to help you whether you're studying for the CPA exam, some other professional certification, or taking an accounting or finance course. Invest in yourself. Good luck. Study hard, and of course, stay safe.